Love stories sell us a picture of destiny, a perfect match written in the stars. Yet Schopenhauer tears that picture apart with brutal honesty. He tells us that what we call love is not the meeting of souls, but the most powerful illusion nature ever invented. Look at how it plays out today. People spend months chasing butterflies, pouring money into weddings, promising forever, and yet the flame dies faster than ever before. Romance becomes less about truth and more about a performance, a dream we cling to because it feels too cruel to admit that passion does not last. Reality proves this every day. Couples who once claimed they could not live without each other now barely speak, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, scrolling through their phones. The promise of undying love dissolves into silence, resentment, or indifference, leaving both sides confused, as if they had been tricked. Schopenhauer's point is that they were. He believed that the very force that brought them together is designed to blind them, to convince them that nothing else matters, so that they will commit fully and without hesitation. Without this illusion, few would ever give up freedom or risk pain for the sake of another. But the price of that illusion is high. When the dream shatters, what remains is not a fairy tale, but two individuals waking up to the weight of reality, wondering how the most intense joy of their life could so quickly turn into disappointment. The harsh light of Schopenhauer forces us to see that perhaps we are not as free in love as we think, and that our belief in romance as the highest human truth may be the very reason we keep repeating the same heartbreak, generation after generation. Schopenhauer believed that beneath all our choices, beneath all our dreams, there is a blind force pushing us forward, a force he called the will. It is not the will we usually think of, like determination or ambition, but something deeper, something we do not control. The will to life drives every living thing to survive, reproduce, and continue the chain of existence, whether we like it or not. In this view, the love we chase is not really ours. It belongs to this ancient force that uses us as instruments. Look around, and you will see how this plays out. People who swore they would never settle end up pulled into relationships that look exactly like the ones they criticized. Men and women with clear plans for their lives suddenly change everything for a partner, abandoning dreams they once held sacred. It is not reason guiding them, but something older, something instinctual, pushing choices they cannot fully explain. Schopenhauer shows us that this is not freedom, it is submission. The will disguises itself as love, passion, or desire, but its aim is not your happiness. It is continuation of the species. Even today, with all our technology and freedom, people still bend to it. Dating apps may look like free choice, yet most profiles reveal the same old patterns, the same search for traits that guarantee survival and reproduction. We think we are choosing partners for love, but the will has already written the script. What makes this tragic is not only the loss of freedom, but the blindness it creates. People wonder why they feel trapped in lives they never consciously chose, but the truth is, they were never the author of that story. They were already caught in the current of something far greater. What feels like the magic of attraction, the sudden pull towards someone we barely know, is not as innocent as it seems. Schopenhauer argued that what we call chemistry is not romance at all, but a calculation made by nature, hidden from our awareness. The spark we feel when locking eyes with a stranger is not about compatibility of souls, but about the possibility of producing children that carry balanced traits. We see this every day without noticing. People often fall for partners who seem to complete them, as if one person's weakness finds its opposite strength in the other. A quiet person is drawn to someone bold. A small figure feels magnetized by someone larger. An anxious spirit finds comfort in someone steady. We tell ourselves it is choice, but biology whispers that it is design. Even in modern times, where many say they do not care about having children, the same patterns repeat. Couples who swore offspring was never their goal often change their minds once the bond deepens, as if the promise made to themselves could not resist the stronger promise written into their blood. This is what Schopenhauer meant by nature's trick. Attraction blinds us with intensity, so we believe the connection is personal. Yet beneath the surface, the will is doing its silent work. And when that purpose is fulfilled, when the fire of attraction has served its hidden task, the spell loses its power. What once felt like destiny suddenly cools into ordinary life, leaving people wondering how they could have been so sure, so certain, only to feel different months or years later. The tragedy is not that they were foolish, but that they were guided by a force that never cared for their happiness in the first place. The belief that passion will last forever is one of the most dangerous lies we tell ourselves, and Schopenhauer exposes it without mercy. He argued that the rush of love, the sleepless nights, the endless desire, all belong to a temporary fever that nature uses to push two people together. Once that fever has done its work, reality steps in, and what seemed unbreakable suddenly fades. Look at how often this plays out in the world around us. Couples who once could not bear to be apart now look for excuses to spend time away from each other. What used to be long conversations about dreams turns into brief exchanges about bills and chores. The passion that felt eternal was never meant to be permanent. It was only a stage. And yet we keep building entire lives as if it will remain unchanged. The problem is not that passion fades, but that we refuse to accept its nature. Movies, songs, and culture sell us the myth of everlasting fire. So when the flames cool, people feel cheated, as if something went wrong. In truth, nothing went wrong at all. The illusion simply ran its course. This is why so many marriages collapse, not in explosive fights, but in quiet disappointment, with each partner silently wondering why the feeling that once defined them no longer lives inside them. Schopenhauer teaches that passion was never a guarantee of lasting love, only the mask of a force with its own agenda. To expect it to stay is to demand from it something it was never designed to give. The sooner we see this, the sooner we understand why so many people chase passion from one relationship to the next, never realizing they are only chasing the same short-lived dream. Schopenhauer did not see marriage as the romantic union of two free individuals, but as the cage built after passion has already done its job. He believed that the very institution of marriage is where the mask finally drops and the couple wakes up to the reality of a bond created less for happiness and more for survival of the species. Modern life proves his point with painful clarity. People rush into marriage carried by the energy of attraction, yet studies show that satisfaction in marriage often declines sharply after only a few years. What begins as excitement slowly turns into routine, arguments over money, and silent withdrawal. The wedding that once felt like the start of eternal joy becomes the doorway to obligations and compromises that neither partner imagined when they were blinded by love's first fire. Divorce courts overflow, not because people are inherently bad at love, but because they walked into a trap set by forces they did not see. Even those who stay married often confess privately that the relationship feels more like endurance than passion, a partnership of necessity rather than choice. Schopenhauer's harsh truth is that the marriage contract does not secure love. It secures the continuation of the will's plan. It demands loyalty long after the passion that justified the bond has disappeared. This is why so many couples live in quiet frustration, held together by children, finances, or social pressure, even when their hearts are no longer in it. The dream of eternal romance dies, and in its place grows the heavy weight of duty. For Schopenhauer, This was not a moral failure, but the inevitable outcome of the will's deception. Marriage, in his view, was never built for human happiness, but for something much colder, the service of life itself. Schopenhauer saw a tragic conflict at the heart of human love, a war between what makes us happy as individuals and what nature demands from us as a species. On one side, people want joy, freedom, and companionship. On the other, nature only wants reproduction and continuation of life, no matter the cost. The proof is everywhere. How many people marry someone who makes sense on paper, but secretly long for someone else who makes them feel alive? How many remain in relationships that drain them because of children, tradition, or fear of being alone? These are not isolated cases. They are the rule. We crave a partner who understands our inner world, yet we often end up with someone chosen not by our deepest self, but by instincts we barely recognize. Schopenhauer argued that the most intense love stories often leave behind the most broken homes because the will that created them cared nothing for long-term harmony. It only cared that new life could emerge. Once that mission is achieved, the individual is left with the ruins of their own unmet needs. Even in modern times, with all our talk of self-fulfillment and personal growth, the pattern continues. People sacrifice dreams, careers, and even health in the name of relationships that ultimately do not nourish them. They think they are serving love, but they are serving life itself, a life that uses them and then moves on. This is why so many adults look back at their younger choices with bitterness, wondering why they betrayed themselves in the name of love. Schopenhauer forces us to face the truth that what benefits humanity as a whole often destroys the individual. The happiness we long for and the plan nature writes for us are rarely the same story. Schopenhauer's writings on the differences between men and women are some of his most controversial, but when stripped of exaggeration, they reveal tensions that still shape relationships today. He believed that men and women are driven by different aims, and that this mismatch fuels endless conflict in love. Reality often shows this clearly. Men are frequently drawn to youth and beauty, signs of fertility that nature values, while women often seek stability, resources, or protection, signs of security for raising children. Even in a modern world where both sexes can work, earn, and live independently, dating studies still confirm these patterns. Apps reveal men consistently preferring younger partners, while women tend to filter for education, income, or status. Couples may not admit it, but these unconscious drives often sit beneath their choices. The result is relationships built on promises each side secretly interprets in different ways. A man might believe love is about passion and companionship, while a woman may expect support and long-term stability. When the hidden expectations collide, resentment grows. Many separations begin not with betrayal, but with the slow discovery that each partner was living out a different contract. Schopenhauer's harsh point was that this asymmetry is not accidental. It is built into life itself. Love pulls men and women together for the sake of the species, but it does not guarantee they want the same things once passion fades. Modern culture tries to paper over these differences with ideals of equality and shared goals. Yet the old tensions keep breaking through. Divorce courts are filled with stories of partners accusing one another of not giving what was promised, when in truth, both were obeying instincts they did not fully understand. For Schopenhauer, this was not a flaw of individuals, but a flaw written into the design of love itself. Schopenhauer argued that the real purpose of love is not the joy of the lovers, but the arrival of the child, the silent center around which the entire drama turns. When two people believe they are choosing each other for happiness, nature is really arranging a meeting for someone who does not yet exist. The truth of this appears everywhere. Couples who seemed unstoppable in their love often find their passion replaced by exhaustion once a child arrives, and yet they endure because the child becomes the unspoken reason they stay. Many marriages that would have collapsed in their early years continue for decades because children hold the bond together, not romance. Even those who never planned to have children often change their minds after marriage, as if a force greater than their will has spoken. The presence of a child transforms priorities, careers, and identities, shifting focus away from the couple and toward the next generation. Schopenhauer's claim was that this was the real aim all along, that the fiery passion and blind certainty of love were simply tools to ensure the child would be born. Modern statistics echo this reality. Surveys show that relationship satisfaction often falls sharply after the first child, yet very few parents say they regret having them, which proves that individual happiness was never the measure being served. Instead, the continuation of life itself was always the true goal. This explains why people who no longer love each other still speak of their children as their greatest success. The lovers may grow apart, but the child remains as the reason their story unfolded at all. Schopenhauer's dark wisdom forces us to admit that the child, not the romance, is the central figure of love's design. Schopenhauer noted that desire burns strongest before it is fulfilled, and once it reaches its goal, the fire often dies, leaving behind emptiness where passion once lived. This is not just theory, but a truth seen again and again. People fight, sacrifice, and even break rules to win someone's love, only to feel strangely restless once they finally have them. What was once a dream turns into routine, and the mind begins to wander toward other possibilities. Reality shows this clearly in the pattern of affairs, breakups, and sudden loss of interest that often follows marriages or long relationships. The hunger that once drove people to make bold promises cannot be sustained once its aim has been reached, because it was never about lasting joy, but about securing its hidden goal. Studies show that dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, spikes during the chase of new love, but fades once the bond is secure. The excitement of uncertainty gives way to predictability, and predictability feels like boredom. This is why so many people feel confused when they get everything they wanted in love, but still feel unsatisfied. They mistake the silence that follows for a flaw in their partner, when in truth, it is the nature of desire itself. Schopenhauer's grim lesson is that fulfillment often carries disappointment inside it, because desire only knows how to push forward, not how to rest. Once one need is met, another quickly rises, and the cycle continues. Relationships become weighed down, not because they were false at the beginning, but because the very thing that made them feel alive cannot remain. What we thought would complete us leaves us searching again, proving Schopenhauer's point that desire is endless, and peace and love is far rarer than we want to admit. Schopenhauer understood something few dare to admit. Even in the closest relationships, loneliness never disappears. Two people can share a home, a bed, even a life, yet still remain strangers in the deepest parts of themselves. The proof of this is everywhere. Couples who post smiling photos and speak of their love in public often confess in private that they feel unseen, misunderstood, or emotionally alone. Long silences at the dinner table, nights spent scrolling on separate screens, and the quiet sense that one's inner world cannot truly be shared. These are the unspoken truths behind many partnerships. This is not because love is fake, but because no one can ever fully bridge the gap between two souls. Schopenhauer argued that each person is ultimately isolated in their own consciousness, bound by the limits of their mind, and that love cannot erase this boundary. The hope that another human being will completely fill our emptiness often leads to bitterness when reality proves otherwise. Modern psychology echoes this, with research showing that loneliness is common even within long-term marriages, especially when the initial spark fades and deeper communication is lacking. People stay together, but carry a quiet ache that something essential is missing. This is why some pursue affairs or distractions, not always from lack of love, but from a desperate attempt to escape the solitude that lingers even in togetherness. Schopenhauer forces us to confront that love does not cure the human condition of isolation. It may soften it. It may distract us from it for a time, but it cannot erase it. The dream of absolute union remains just that, a dream, while the reality is that every person, no matter how loved, still carries a silence inside that no partner can ever fully reach. Schopenhauer believed that love often reveals its true face, not in the beginning, but in the end, when people look back and measure what it cost them. Regret becomes the shadow that follows many relationships, especially when the fire that once felt eternal leaves behind ashes of wasted time and lost chances. We see this all around us. Middle-aged men and women speak quietly about the dreams they abandoned for a marriage that no longer fulfills them. Parents who once built their entire lives around children find themselves empty when those children leave, staring at a partner they no longer recognize. Even young people who rushed into love sometimes wake up to the truth that they traded their best years for a bond that collapsed before it could deliver the happiness it promised. Regret is not just about failed love. It is about the recognition that they were guided by forces they never understood, mistaking instinct for freedom. Studies confirm that one of the most common reflections of older adults is wishing they had chosen differently in love. Proof that this pain is not rare, but universal. What makes it heavier is that there is no way to undo the choices once made. Time does not return, and the sacrifices cannot be reversed. Schopenhauer's dark wisdom lies in showing that regret is not an accident, but the natural outcome of chasing illusions that were never meant to last. It is not that people are foolish, but that they were chasing happiness in a game designed for another purpose entirely. The tragedy is that by the time most people see this clearly, their lives are already shaped by the very choices they now mourn, carrying the weight of what might have been.